This lesson is on formulas and specifically functions. Now, up until now, I guess the lessons we've covered, we would enter a formula by saying equal, and then we would either click the cell that we want or type it in, and then we'd say plus another cell, plus another, plus another, plus another, plus another. Now, this could get real old real fast, especially when you're working with really big spreadsheets where there are hundreds or even thousands of numbers. So what we've got an option here, and it's called the function. And we're able to start the formula this way. And when we want to add, it's the sum function. So we could type it in. However, you probably won't. But this is what it looks like. So I'm going sum, and then I open my bracket. And then I would type in the range. Now, a range is the first cell to the last cell. So here the first cell would be C5. And rather than the word to, we use a colon. And then we would type in the last cell, which would be C14. Be careful never to include the cell that you're in your formula. If you do this by accident, you will get a message saying that you've just created a circular reference, and it's similar to a dog chasing its tail, just going around in circles, because you're saying, I want this cell to be equal to whatever this cell happens to be, plus others. You can't do that. So never include the cell you're in your formula. And I would close my bracket, and then I would get my answer. The beauty of this formula, of course, is if any of these numbers change, my answer will also change. And if you have hundreds or even thousands of cells, that's the easiest way to do this, is to actually type it in manually. There are shortcuts for this, and I'll show you how it works. So rather than type in the formula, you can go to this button right here, and you can use sum. And now it's guessing. Now, oftentimes it guesses right, but oftentimes it doesn't guess right. In this case, it's not guessing correctly. So I need to, with my mouse or by typing, redefine the proper range. Now, for such a small range, I would much prefer to just click and drag. So I'm just using my mouse here, being careful not to include the cell that I'm in, right? So make sure I'm not in C15, and then I can just hit enter to finish that, and that gives me the correct answer. And like any other formula, I can use my fill handle and copy that right across. Huge, huge time saver. There is also a shortcut for average. So on this button right here, you've got the 5 most, I guess, popular functions. Sum, average being the next one. So we'll say, okay, give me the average. Once again, it's not guessing correctly. We certainly don't want to include total again. We only want the average of the actual production numbers. And then I would hit enter to lock that in. Max would give you the highest number in that range. So I can ask for max. Once again, redefine the range and then hit enter. Min would give you, of course, the smallest number. So if your range is so large that you don't want to use your mouse to use it, like if it's thousands long, you would probably write down on a piece of paper that it starts at C5 and it ends at C1555, right? So in this case, it would simply be C5 to C14, and then when you're done, just hit enter, okay, and you'd be done. And counts the amount of non-blank cells. So here, this employee obviously was sick that day, so I want to know how many people showed up on a Monday, and I'd be able to track which work week day is the one where most people call in sick, right? So again here, and I would go to count numbers and redefine, and then it's giving me 9, and I can take all of these formulas and copy them all across at the same time. And with average, I'd probably want to change the amount of decimal places. Now, I did for here, you can also do the same. So here I'd have the total for Monday, the average production on Monday, the maximum production on Monday, the minimum production on Monday, and the amount of people who showed up for work on Monday. Here I can have the total for this one employee, find out exactly what this total production was. So again, I would come here and use sum, and here, because they're right next to it, it did define it properly, and I can copy that all the way down. And I have to start a new function here for average. So these are called functions, And again, I do not want to include total, right? I only want the production numbers. If I include total by accident, my average will be double what it should be. Always check your answer to make sure that it makes sense. Because here, if I did choose all of that and it's giving me an average of 68, I would know logically that's not right. So always check your answer to make sure that it's logical. So now I can copy that. And now the maximum that any employee produced, oh no, sorry, the best day this person had would have been what number? And I can copy that all the way down. And of course min, once again, min, and choose the days. So now we have a lot of information that we didn't have before, and we were able to come across it very, very quickly using what we call functions. So that's your lesson on functions.